The woman was taking care of her son's grave and heard a strange noise coming from the fence. She then dug deeper and almost fainted with what she saw. Maria Silva walked through the cemetery, heading to her son Joao's grave. He had died 10 days ago, and the mourning mother still couldn't accept the fact that her son was gone. Burying one's own son is always difficult, especially at that age. "You were only 25 years old, my dear. You had your whole life ahead of you. And now you're gone," the mother whispered as she walked to the grave. While wiping her tears, Maria noticed that pieces of vegetation were starting to grow on Joao's headstone and that it was better to remove them before they spread and took over the place. Furthermore, she knew that the cemetery staff were a bit lazy and that they expected the relatives of the deceased to take care of their own space. "Joao was so nice. These fences are great. They go around 2 headstones. Very well thought out. He probably reserved the space for himself. The poor thing loved his wife so much, he probably wants to be buried next to her," Mrs. Silva thought. With the intention of cutting the grass that had grown, the girl sat beside the grave, under the heat of the noon sun. It was very hot and also difficult to breathe. After finishing, Maria took a few minutes to rest and leaned on the fence. Suddenly, she heard a strange noise nearby. The old lady, who was alone, listened carefully, though there was no one else around. Upon paying close attention, she realized that it wasn't birds. "Oh my God, that's a human voice," Mrs. Silva concluded. As she approached her son's grave, the sound grew louder. "I'm still alive. Someone help me. John was very nice. These fences are great. They go around 2 headstones. Very well thought out. He probably reserved the space for himself. The poor thing loved his wife so much, he probably wants to be buried next to her," thought Mrs. Silva. In order to trim the grass that had grown, the girl sat next to the grave, under the heat of the midday sun. It was very hot, and also difficult to breathe. After finishing, Maria took a few minutes of rest and leaned on the fence. Suddenly, she heard a strange noise in the vicinity. The old lady then became quiet and paid attention around. Although there was no one else, upon paying close attention, she realized it was not birds. "Oh my God, that's a human voice," concluded Mrs. Silva. As she approached her son's grave, the sound became louder. "I'm still alive. Someone help me." Maria was stunned by what she heard, and quickly imagined that her son Joao could be alive. Without wasting any time, the old woman went to meet the cemetery employees, the brothers Carlos and Jose. They had been working there for a while, and they made good money for their services. The reason they didn't do anything for free. When Maria came explaining what she had heard, it did not interest the men. After working for years in the cemetery, the brothers had seen everything. Moreover, the relatives of the dead always said they heard things, and all the brothers did was calm the relatives and refer them to a psychologist. But Maria was not discouraged. She knew she had to make sure that her son was well. She then decided to dig in Joao's grave, even without the help of the employees. After hours of work, she finally found Joao's coffin and opened it. To her surprise, she found that her son had been buried alive due to a medical mistake. She immediately called the police and the doctors to save Joao and hold the guilty accountable. From that day on, Maria began to fight for justice and the rights of the dead, so that no other family had to go through a tragedy like this. And so we come to the end of our audio story today. Friend, leave your comment and don't forget to give your like. Goodbye.